Welcome back to another episode of Dominating a Man's World, the podcast created specifically to highlight women in male dominated industries. For today's guest, I have Milagros Varela. She is the head of the Storm Angels. So go ahead, Millie, and introduce yourself to our listeners today.
Thank you for that phenomenal introduction, Isabel. So my name is Milagros. I go by Millie. I work for Black Diamond Housing Services. We provide temporary housing solutions to homeowners that have been displaced or can't temporarily live in their home. So we find them a like kind and quality housing option at no out-of-pocket cost, and we work with their insurance carriers. And to pick up from the Storm Angel gig, I have two wonderful ladies that joined me on this journey of storm chasing and helping homeowners with temporary housing. It's Summer and Marcella. So we recently attended the WIN conference, and I guess that name stuck, and now we are the Storm Angels.
That's awesome. That's so good to hear. So, what exactly? How does that all work? The housing, the ALE. What is it that you
So,
do?
yes. So basically, homeowners have a coverage within their policy called loss of use or additional living expense. It's usually coverage D. Sometimes it's coverage C depending on the carrier. And what that allows the homeowner to do is to tap into that coverage to find a temporary housing solution. The little niche of it all is that it has to be an incurred cost in order for anybody to be reimbursed. So we understand that most homeowners may not have the out-of-pocket expense to find whether it's a hotel or a rental home for the time being of their repairs. So that's where Black Diamond Housing Services steps in and bridges that financial gap between the insured and the insurance carrier by providing all of the cost up front at no out-of-pocket cost for the client. We just tap into that coverage, whatever amount is allotted to coverage C, and we speak to all parties involved within the claim to say, okay, what is the length of time that they will need to be placed in the temporary housing. And so basically, once we have that all arranged, we speak to the insured, we verify, what their household size is, if they have any disabilities or pets that we need to take in consideration during the placement of their family.
That sounds a very good thing for the insured, and it sounds very stressful as well. Difficult to do. I can just imagine, these clients sometimes, they're frustrated. They need somewhere to go. It's very important for them, to find the right place. So that sounds like a very difficult job.
Yes, there's definitely a lot of moving pieces to the process from the initial retrieval of the claim to then passing it on to our intake team, them speaking to the insured and making sure that we're checking all the boxes. We're making sure that we're finding a like kind and quality housing option. We stay within a 10-mile radius when we're placing these families, unless it's a catastrophic event and perhaps they can't be within a 10-mile radius. So now we're looking at different options. One of the options when there's catastrophic storms is RV. And so we have a large fleet of RVs available for clients that we can deliver to their house, connect them to their house, and from then on, we'll come and we'll service the RVs when they need to be serviced. And once their home has been restored, we will come and pick up the RVs. If they don't have the connections for those RVs, then we'll find a nearby RV park that we can place them there until their homes are back to normal. So there is a lot of moving pieces. We have underwriters, we have housing specialists that are constantly looking for housing options, whether it's an RV, a vacational home, or an extended stay.
Okay, that's cool. Is that very popular, like for someone just to stay in an RV in front of their house?
Actually, it is. I didn't think so. But it also depends on like where exactly we are. For example, when we were in Louisiana, I mean, they were hit pretty bad. They had the option to be in a house, right? A couple of hours away, but they preferred an RV, and the RVs that we provide are fully equipped. Like you and I were, we were hanging out at the Wind Conference and we're
Yeah.
saying if we could do glamping, then I'm in for it, right? So,
Yeah.
so the RVs are brand new. Most of them are renovated, if not, they're just brand new out of factory,
Yeah.
and they're really nice. Like I would not mind, living there.
And that's not bad at all, but just very interesting. I'm sure a lot of people in Lake Charles didn't want to leave their homes for, they were probably destroyed. Didn't want anybody to come in and start, that's that word is looting or something that I'm looking for.
Looting,
And just,
yes,
yeah, and trying to like
yes.
take their stuff. So, quick question here, Millie. How did you get started in this industry? Like, how did you say, I want to be part of housing and ailing?
So it wasn't. So it was not a choice. I was like I told you, I was listening to your podcast and how you just randomly ended up in this industry.
Yeah.
So did I. Um, so Black Diamond Housing Services is fairly new. We started about 2 years ago, but that's what we pivoted into. Previous to that, we were doing we still do, and the main company is Black Diamond Funding, and so I was in the process of pivoting my life. I had a restaurant at the time. I sold my portion because I very quickly learned that the restaurant industry is not for
Oh,
me. Um,
oh, it's a very
and as an
difficult one.
owner, you're working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
What type of food?
So I'm sorry.
What type of food was it in your restaurant?
It was a franchise. It was called. It was an Israeli concept. It was called Burgerim,
Okay.
and it was a great concept. But they didn't have. First of all, it just was not for me.
Yeah,
Let's
no,
just
I
say that.
understand. No,
It
I
just,
understand.
yeah,
I
it
worked
just
for a
really
little
was
while in
not
the
for me.
Yeah, I worked for a little while in the restaurant industry, and it's definitely a change for sure.
Yeah, it was definitely a change. I mean, I consider myself a very hard worker, but that was that was too much. I had like no lifestyle, and so shortly after I gave that and I moved on, I reached out to Keston, who is one of the owners, and we have a mutual friend, and he's like, the company's growing. We want you on. And I started just like you as an administrative assistant. And then 3 months into me learning the whole legal aspect and personal injury and dealing with attorneys, they were like, listen, Millie, we see it. You may not, but we want you to take over marketing. And I was like, okay, sounds good. I'll take on the challenge, even though I was like completely petrified. And and so I did, and I basically, started developing the personal injury portion of the marketing side, and attended tons of conferences, built great, professional relationships that turned into friendships. And so like 2 years out, they said, we want to pivot our business and add Black Diamond Housing. And we were like, we have no idea what this entails, but let's go for it. Tons of research, and I just started immersing myself in with restoration companies, people, personal injury attorneys that knew first party attorneys, so that they can tell me a little bit more about the business.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think, that's kind of like what I did. I started, very in an administrative role, came on just not really knowing, but I figured my ways through it. One thing that I did realize as I was figuring my way is it is a male dominated industry. So as you were coming up from that administrative role to, being the head of marketing for this company, what struggles did you encounter as a female? Because I figured out very early on, like, this is a male dominated industry, and if you're not strong, they will run over you. So as you were coming up from that position of an administrative and going to those conferences, what struggles did you encounter?
I would say, I don't know, if I wouldn't call it a struggle. I would call it a challenge, right? I'm a firm believer that as a woman, we may get misinterpreted, right? For being a woman, beauty, and
Mm-hmm.
no brains,
Oh yeah.
right? So for me, it was, if I know what I'm talking about, if I'm confident in what I'm talking about, they'll show me respect. I mean, they'll have to.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
Because I'm bringing something to the table that is going to benefit their business and their clients, right? So if I know what I'm talking about and I'm confident in how I deliver it, I know that the approach is going to be different. I did experience, as you were saying in your first podcast, how the guys that, oh, I've been doing this for 30 years and that
Yeah,
doesn't work, or
those are my
I
favorite.
never utilized that for my clients, and that's not a service that I feel is necessary. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. 30 years in the industry, sir, but
Yeah,
you've been doing a disservice for your client, right? Because you're not utilizing all of the coverages within the policy to best suit your client throughout this process. And
correct.
so I'm the type of person that I don't have a filter. Like, I say what's on my mind. Obviously, graciously. I've never disrespected anybody, but I'm not one to hold back on what I think is potentially the best option for the client, right? I think that throughout any industry, no matter how long you've been in it, there has to be some type of evolution. There has to be some type of change. And so as you grow, you evolve. And if you don't evolve, then I don't care how many years you've been in any industry, you're going to be stuck in your old ways and you won't be able to get to that next level.
I couldn't agree with you more. I know, just to backtrack a little bit on what you said, she basically said, confidence is definitely something you need to, to not basically, you don't want to, if you have confidence, you won't struggle. So having that confidence
Mm-hmm.
will make you, move forward and have them to respect you and not have them run over you. Basically, that's what it is. And then you brought up another good
Yeah.
point of, change. There has to be evolution. That actually brings me to a really good question. I have, like, throughout going through conferences and just working on a day by day, I always see and I come across things that I want, that I think that needs to change. You know what I mean? I feel like we do need to, there does need to be an evolution. What do you think? What would you like to see that changes this year for our industry?
I think I would say not seeing everyone as a competitor, right? Coming from the personal injury funding, I can tell you that I was definitely not the only housing company within that conference. We're very fortunate to be the only vendor so far that was able to present Black Diamond Housing, right? Especially at Wind. But in the personal injury side, I had tons of funding companies in one place. And there was a lot of like back and forth, and they thought that, like, they were better. Or
Oh yeah,
for me, there's no such thing as competition. I think that we all strive to provide maybe the same service, but the,
but
the, the
different.
delivery is completely different, right?
Yeah.
We all have our niche, we all have our process and procedures. No company is like the other. And so I think that what I would like to see is that if it's not already happening, I would like for it to be better, maybe, as in, adjusters communicating with other adjusters, restoration companies communicating with other restoration companies, and so on, because we can all learn a lot from each other.
Yeah,
And
yeah, we definitely
go ahead.
can. I've experienced that in, previous conferences that I've attended where, you speak to other adjusters and they do things in a completely different way that you do it, and you're like, wow, like, I spent an extra 3 hours doing something he does in an hour. Like, if I would have just spoken to him, before, I would have been able to, it's time management, it's learning new skills, it's learning from others, what you don't already do. So no, I completely agree, and I feel like there's so many homeowners out there that need help that I don't even feel like we should be, in competition with each other. There's just so much
Yeah,
work that I feel like everyone has sufficient amount for everybody. Like, you're right. It should not be yeah,
absolutely.
it should definitely not be a competition. So in the middle of all of this, um, I know that, it is a male dominated industry. We've had our bad times, but we've also had our good times. I think, after all, I've always had, like, great moments in this industry. Going to conferences is one of my favorite ones. You meet new people. Even here on a day to day, there's some clients that do brighten up your day. meeting employees, coming to work, you know, um, from moving from this like what is it? I'm so sorry. Personal injury to
Yes.
housing. What out of everything, what was your best moment that you've had?
For me, meeting people that I can learn from. Like, I've always strived to excel, whether I was the administrative assistant, whether I was in personal injury, or helping our in house counsel. Like, just for me, growing and meeting people that can make me better has been my ultimate goal and the greatest experience. Um, Sitting at a conference and meeting someone new, I'm a people's person,
Yeah.
right? And
Oh
like
no,
you
you
said in
are.
your
You are.
podcast, like you said in your podcast, I always strive to be the best person, right? If you own a restaurant, if you're a bartender, if whatever it is that you do, you have to do it at 1,000%. That is that's my way of thinking. And so for me, it always has been, who can I meet that can teach me so much and make me better? Because if I look at myself and compare myself to that person, I know nothing, right? Regardless of how confident I am. So I think that my greatest experience has been being able to connect with people who have the same drive, who have the same vision and passion for what it is that they do, and just feed off their energy.
No, that's 100% true. I think for me, it definitely has to be, gathering what you just said and meeting those people, getting what they know and what you learn from them, and then applying it. The fact when I get to
Yeah.
actually apply it and see that I actually get a good result from it, or my client's extremely happy now, it makes me happy. It makes me feel like, wow, I actually did something. I feel like every time a client's happy or I finalize a claim, or it's like a great sense of accomplishment for myself. So I'm like, this, so I don't have one particular good moment. It's like a bunch of little moments together that make it a
Yeah.
great experience. That's basically the way I see it, because you meet those good people, they teach you something new, you apply it, and now every day becomes a great experience. So,
Yeah,
um,
and just to, go back to that, I think that it makes me a better business developer, right? It makes me a better marketer because I've done the whole marketing behind a computer and social media and all of the platforms that we can share information and resource, but I've also done boots on the ground, right? I've also have been in front of the consumer, the homeowners who are affected after a hurricane and have lost their livelihood, right? So meeting these people, learning from them has made me an overall better human in general, right?
yeah.
But also a better professional because when a client asks me things that obviously I say, listen, I'm not an adjuster or an attorney, but I know this, right? And if you apply that, then you'll be able to move forward with your claim or whatever it may be. Like, I'm able to hold a conversation with either another business or the consumer directly. And I think another great experience that I completely forgot about
That's
is
fine.
helping. So when I was in Louisiana, it was tough. It was my first storm chase, and there was days that I would come back to the hotel and I'll be like, I don't think I could do this because, as I'm sure you know, going out there,
Oh, it's tough.
getting claims and dealing with people who are in complete distress, it's not easy. It's not easy at all. And so, but the one thing that kept me going was they need me. They
Uh,
lost everything.
yeah.
And I am their only option to find like a peace of mind and lay their head in a comfortable bed after everything that they've gone through. And so for me that was so rewarding. I even one of the we delivered an RV to this lady in Louisiana and she was probably in her 80s. She had no family members. And I even went to visit her after we delivered the RVs and I'm like, "Hey, do you need anything?" Like I helped her like clean up the RV a little bit cuz she couldn't. I even walked her dogs. And so those things that you look back and you're like, "I did that? Like what was I thinking?" But they're so rewarding like in your soul, right? Like for me, I love helping people, so that for me was very, very rewarding and impactful.
Okay, so you're saying like all of these things that we do, and I also think a lot of this comes from the compassion that we as women have, to do all of
Mm-hmm.
these things. I It's very hard to
100%.
see, I think, in this industry when for the man to go above and beyond usually what they do. That's just my opinion. Yes, they're strong at what they're presented, like they're strong at going on getting done, but very rare do you see the man walking the client's dog to for that compassion. You know what I mean? So I think us as women,
Absolutely.
we bring always that extra value, that extra set of feelings in, without being too women-y. I guess I don't even know what word to really use, but without being too, without
Just
losing our
calling
confidence.
me.
Yeah.
One
Uh,
hundred percent, 100. Because then that could also be misinterpreted, right? Um, but I couldn't agree with you more. I think that women have more compassion and we're able to connect on a deeper level when it comes to people's emotions and we have a good, I don't think balance is the right word, but we have the that limit of saying, okay, this is business, but I'm also human and so are they. So let me connect with them on that level.
okay. So what do you think you're doing differently in your industry that other women are not?
Oh, this is a hard one. um, uh, to be honest with you, just be myself. I I I know what I do is what I love, right? I truly, truly am passionate of what I do. I think that being yourself and not trying to impress people
Yeah.
is the best thing that you could do for any aspect of life, professionally, personally, whatever it is. And it goes back to that confidence, right? If you're confident and you're happy in what you're doing, then you radiate like positivity, you radiate good energy. And so for me, it's just truly just being myself. Um, Being confident, always trying to strive to be a better marketer, to be a better business developer. Like there's not a day that I'm too comfortable, if that makes sense. Like there's never a day where I say, okay, well, I brought in X amount of claims, I'm good, or I
Yeah.
made this great connection, my job here is done. No, no, no. I live my life as there's always more. Like I did this and I achieved this, which was great. It was a great achievement, but there, if I could do this, I could do more. And so I think that personally, I always strive to be a better version of myself, but I also strive to be me, because who you see at a meeting is who you're going to see outside of that meeting, and who you see at a conference with, high energy, always going and laughing, is who I'm truly am at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think there's no other, I think that's the best way to be about it. Being yourself ultimately is, the best. I think being fake just leads you to a certain point that, people are going to realize it, so you could just be, I feel like you could only be fake for just a certain amount of, like, for just a period of time. Eventually, they will find out who you are. And then things just start to crumble. So, relationships that you build on, being that person will then break. And that's just, it leads to, other scenarios and things that shouldn't have happened if you would have just been yourself from the beginning. Men then see us a different way. They don't respect us anymore at this point. Now it's like we're seen as a sex symbol. And that's not how, that's what I'm trying to change, with these podcasts and with the industry, and trying to get all these women together to show that, that we do bring that confidence, that positivity to get the job done. So how would you, what is your opinion on maybe getting that bridge to close in, that bridge between getting them to respect us and, see us for, what we are, than just that sex symbol that I spoke of before?
I would say, and I know I've said this, I would say know your niche. Know whatever it is that you are providing. If you know it and you know all the aspects and all of the questions that they may ask, they're going to respect you. I've gone out into meetings that they see me and I smile and I'm friendly and they're like, "Oh, this is just your regular marketer, right?" Because I've been told that,
Yeah.
right? And so the meeting goes on and it ends and they're like, wow, how long have you been doing this? You know a lot. And I'm like, I actually have only been doing it 2 years. But for me, what's most important is knowing my service, knowing my product, learning every aspect of it and how it could truly benefit the client. So I think that it's inevitable that when you go in, they're going to perceive you as one thing. But like you said in your first podcast, once you started talking,
Yep.
then the mood in the room changed, right? They see you and they're like, okay, she's confident, she knows what she's talking about, she knows her product, she understands my business, so she's able to elaborate on how she can make my business better by using her product. So I just truly think that we can't, unfortunately, we can't change how they may see
How they
us
perceive us, yeah.
until we open our mouth and start speaking to them about it.
So to recap, to close that bridge in, you would say, to have the knowledge. If you have the knowledge and the confidence, how you said earlier, that could bring in that bridge, because it's happened to me, just how I mentioned in my previous podcast, and how it's happened to me a lot of times. I've gone to shows, to meetings, to absolutely anything, and the moment and sometimes, and especially if I walk in with the owners of the company. So if I walk in with the owners of the company, they immediately think I'm just like brought to, like, as just to like a demonstration or something, like that, I just to like attract them to come work for us or something. It isn't up until I start speaking, and I actually, there's even times when they'll ask like the owners a question, they're like, actually, can you speak to her about that, because I'm not really fully knowledge in that. And that's my favorite part of the whole meeting, because they're like, oh, and now they look like very awkwardly to me, and like as I start to speak, everything changes. Now at this point, they no longer speak to the owners. Now they're looking at me and they're like back to back questions, like trying to pick at my brain to see what I know. And like from that moment on, I constantly have them like blowing up my phone, like, hey, I have a question on this, I have a question on that. But like when they first met me, I was just like I was just a pretty face, basically. I was just trying to look for the right way to put it. So
Yeah.
So with that said, do you have any tips or advice or anything to share to all the women and everybody listening on here today?
I mean, everything that I said, it's learn your product. Don't just settle for bringing in claims, right? Excel in everything that you do. Learn every aspect from answering the phone and what the client, hears, to what the client hears once the claim has settled, right? I just think that everybody has to be well versed in every area of their business, so that they could just be a better professional overall. And perhaps, who knows, you go on your own and do your own thing, but these are experiences that you've truly have taken every opportunity to learn every aspect of it, and it just molds you to be a better person overall.
Okay, that's awesome.
Thank you so much, Isabel and Bulldog Adjusting, for all that you do for us and for having me on this amazing podcast. I think that once women unite, we'll realize that the strength that we hold together versus apart. So I'm so proud of you for taking this step, for taking this passion, and for sharing what it is to be a woman in a male dominant industry, and how to excel the prototypes that men may have, right, when it comes to business. So thank you so much for having me on, and I'm excited to see all of the upcoming ladies.
Awesome. Thank you. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at DAMW Podcast, and visit our website at www.damwpodcast.com. Feel free to reach out to us if you want to be on the podcast. I would love to have you and, get together and speak just some more about, everything going on in our industry. You have to have confidence in your ability and then be tough enough to follow through. Rosalind Carter.